G'day, welcome to the Snowies. I've come in from this eastern approach to the park along the edge of the Jagungal wilderness, and I'm heading out towards Jagungal. Well, those were my plans anyway. I only made it halfway, but in this journey I learnt a lot about the lay of the land and the walking conditions. The way I went this time was fairly cumbersome, and I used another route on the subsequent attempt. This track runs along the Cesjacks Ridge, a high ridgeline that continues from the park gate to the Bull's Peaks. About a kilometre along, halfway to Cesjacks Hut, we cross this open saddle. Pretty sure that Spencer's Peak is off to the north of this saddle. And a little further on, we get a view over to the objective, Jagungal Mountain, with Cesjacks Hut on the lower left. I've never been up this way before, so I don't know the exact route, but I'm thinking of just staying to the left of the mountain because it seems like there's more open areas to cross. I was thinking to begin the approach from the creek behind Cesjacks Hut. Okay, here's the junction for Cesjacks, but I'll continue along this left branch just to see what's up here. I didn't know it yet, but this is a better way to reach the ridges that lead out to Jagungal. This is still the Cesjacks Ridge. Yeah, this seems to be heading out towards the Bull's Peaks. I'll head back towards the hut. Here's the hut. I'll just head down to the creek now. In the valley behind the hut is the striking landmark called Vertical Rock. I was hoping there might be a possible route beginning there. About this I was wrong. Okay, here's the creek and that is Vertical Rock. First, let's pick out a few landmarks. As is probably obvious, this is Jagungal Mountain, which is a 2,000 metre mountain. The highest point in this area besides Jagungal is Jacky's Lookout on Farm Ridge. The rise on the right is a prominent unnamed peak that indicates the northern reaches of this valley. When looking back this way, the area where I'm standing is seen as a distinct grassy swathe. This low hill, when located, is the detail which helps to pinpoint the position of the hut. This is the line of today's route, and I began here because it's a popular spot with a dry crossing of Doubtful Creek. Behind the low hill, a grassy ridge leads up to the foot of the next ridgeline, and my plans were to see what it was like from there. It was a terrible way, but can you blame me for trying? It's practically a straight line from here to Jagungal. I'm going to try and pick my way around the left of this low hill. This area was the firmest, driest crossing in this section of the Doubtful Creek Valley that I saw. This is the low hill, which was a good reference point to look back to. First I had to cross the creek. The creek was easy to cross but there were hidden obstacles in the heath on the banks. The Jagungal wilderness is generally very rugged underfoot. It's best to try and stay with the snowgrass. This is the other side of the hill. Seems to be leading me upwards. I was hoping there might be a break in the heath somewhere up there that would continue this line to Jagungal. The snowgrass is really clumpy. This is the type of walking where every foot placement is hidden between uneven clumps of snowgrass. Up higher, I thought to pause and take a look around. A little further on, I've reached this distinctive rock. It looks like the vegetation's closing in up ahead. I couldn't see it yet, but there was a grassy opening a little further along. Let's have a look back to where I've come from. That's the hill that I've just come around. Cesjacks Hut is higher on the ridge to the right. This prominence is a good visual reference for the northern end of this valley. We only see it in this part of the valley, it's obscured later on. Also, that's Farm Ridge on the left, and I think that's Jacky's lookout. Just pursuing this natural opening. Now heading up this way, it's my only choice. I've got to keep away from the heath, the snowgrass is tough enough. I know it looks easy and open, but walking long distances across this type of terrain is very taxing on the ankles, feet and knees. Here the grassland crossed the ridge. And yes, this grassy saddle is leading right through. But heath was blocking the direct line to Jagungal. The heath looks very thick off to my right. The last thing I'd want to do is go uphill through that. It's actually another offshoot from this end of Farm Ridge. There was clear ground off to the south. Thinking to try this valley approach. And here I discovered how swampy the valleys can be, and the camera battery went flat as well, so the next shot is further along the valley to the left. Along the valley was what appeared to be a block stream, which I climbed through. This is the section up above. I'll be sticking with the snowgrass. Up above was a larger swamp, which I would have to circumvent. My high point for the day was up here at this saddle. And looking back, yes, this does seem to be a block stream. Block streams gather when rocks in icy slush move downhill. I was slowly realizing that the ridges give better passage through these areas because the lowlands are filled with swamps. This area is more swampy than I thought. I've got to get to the edge of it. Although a bog is based mostly upon sphagnum moss, a variety of plants like to grow in them. Seeing I'm stuck in a bog, let's have a look at it. Yeah, this is candle heath here, and it's really spiky, and it grows on top of this sphagnum moss, which eventually breaks down to peat. Sphagnum moss doesn't have roots. It absorbs nutrients through its cells. It's got a really spongy texture. Of course, it absorbs a lot of water. The slow release of water from sphagnum moss keeps the creeks flowing all year. Pineapple grass likes to grow in these areas too. And small black ants build their nest on top of it. After many hardships and slow goings that aren't recorded, I reached the higher, drier ground. And now the climb to the ridge crest. Okay, I've made this more open gully. And this terrain is really uneven. As mentioned earlier, the uneven terrain is very taxing on the lower extremities. Okay, I've reached a higher saddle. There was a rock that looked like a good vantage point. I'll just get a view off here. Okay, and this is looking back to where I've come up from. It looks like I'm only just leaving the Doubtful Creek Valley, so that would make this Farm Ridge. Farm Ridge is more distinct further to the north. At this end it breaks into lesser branches, and this is the most southern one. Looking north, we can see the ridges coming down from Farm Ridge, which is the highest ground up in the distance. A little further along this ridgeline, we can see up onto the mountain. But the mountain still seemed to be a fair way off, and I had no idea of the terrain ahead. Fortunately, the day's gotten away on me. It's taken a lot longer to get here than I thought. I'm just over halfway, I think. I chose badly on the route that I took to get in here. I'm going to have to call this a recce day, I'd say. Even though my inward route was cumbersome, this point on the ridge is a key place to reach, and I would return to this spot by a different route on the next try. As for the further route, which I learned on the next trip, beyond this heathy ridge in the foreground, which is another offshoot of Farm Ridge, an upland leads over to the Jagungal Saddle. Beyond there, another high ridge is encountered, which is the edge of the Toolong Range, and a similar saddle to this is climbed too. From there, the eastern ramparts of the mountain are only a kilometre away. Back at the viewpoint over the inward route, I wanted to try a different way to get back. The result was finding a better way. And this is part of the way I came in, skirting the edges of these lowlands. We can see the grassy swathe of the Cesjacks area and the low hill as well. The hut is on this ridge here. I followed these valleys around and the block stream is about here. The going was a lot easier on the ridge crests, so I'm going to try and follow these ridges around on the right and then make my way up to the Cesjacks Ridge. This is definitely a good approach ridge, and it's shown in more detail here than in the Jagungal video. Okay, trying the ridge crest. There were large clumps of thick heath on the other side of the ridge that I definitely wanted to avoid. Thankfully, on the northern side of the ridge, there were animal trails leading all the way down. The first section steps down to a grassy plateau. This is the next lower plateau, and I'm following animal trails. This grassy area continued on for some distance. This is the same gentle flat area. A couple of 100 meters later, I noticed the tracks of deer on these trails. Another open area. The trails sometimes became vague, but it wasn't hard to pick them up again. They gave clear passage and were easier underfoot. There's the Cesjacks Ridge over there. I still have to cross the Doubtful Creek Valley to reach it. The Cesjacks Ridge is a visual landmark from all around the Doubtful Creek Valley. As I said, the trails are the key to getting through the scrubby parts. There's a fair bit of heavy heath down this way too. The animal trails seem to be leading from open section to open section. I stopped for a view of the Doubtful Creek Valley. That's the upper swamp that I crossed. And Vertical Rock is on the other side of that hill. That's where I need to be. After getting good passage and dry ground on the ridge crest, now I had to face the river flats. Bogs and swamps abound, and I never did find a comfortable crossing point. I'll just cross this. The river crossing itself is easily manageable in many places. And then head up there. And that's where I've just come down from. The walking was much quicker on the ridge, and I would return this way. By now I was becoming fatigued from the day's walking, and this final slope became the hill of hardship. Oh, this is turning out to be a slog again. It's uneven terrain. The river flats weren't much fun either, really boggy. The animal trails were so much easier going, but I couldn't locate any in this section. And again, higher on the ridges there's better passage. Time for a final look back. And that's where I've come up from, where we can see the sky reflected in the water on the left is where I crossed the creek. As I said, this is the approach I would take for the next try. So there we go, an attempt to reach Jagungal from the Cesjacks area. Didn't quite work out for me though. I'd forgotten how rugged it can be out here. Glad I didn't try for it though, barely making it back by sundown as it is. And I'm not surprised that Jagungal's remained elusive. It's always been a hard place to get to. So I'm on the other end of the walk now, thinking to sign out here. See ya.